everyone, this is Terry from terryscraftroom.com. I haven't made a video in a really long time. I've been so busy, but I made this card and I thought it should be videoed. So I got the idea for this card from Sam at Mixed Up Crafters, and her original card is, I believe it's 8 by 4. And here in the US, that's not conducive to mailing through the postal system. So I redid the card into a smaller format so that it will fit into a 5 by 7 envelope. And it's actually 7 by about 3 3/4 to get all the measurements correctly. So we're going to do this card today at the smaller format, so it will go through the US postal system. You can buy a 5 by 7 envelope instead of having to make your own for this one. So thanks, Sam, for your inspiration, and let's get started. So we need a piece of cardstock for the card base that is 10.5 by 7, and we're going to do quite a bit of scoring. And I found that scoring with the trimmer works better than scoring it on a scoreboard, and I'll show you why in a minute. Grab your trimmer with a scoring blade, and you're going to score it at 1 3/4. And if you miss all this information, I'll have all this information over on my blog at terryscraftroom.com. I'll also have a direct link to this card in the information box below. And so go on over to terryscraftroom.com and you can see all the information, all the supplies I used. I will call out, there's a couple of supplies we're using today that are retired. I'm a big advocate of using what's in your stash. So, 1 3/4, 3.5. Let's open this up. Then 7 and 8 3/4. Okay, so that'll give you 1 2 3 4 score lines. We're going to fold and burnish it both ways so that it's easier to see. And then we're going to do make some marks and do our diagonals for our diamonds. Okay, so now you can see all those score lines pretty easily. We can pull that back in. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make 4 marks on the page and a pencil. Make sure you're using a pencil and a very good eraser, because these marks will show if you don't erase them. So you need to erase them. But we're going to line this up at 5 1/4 and put a mark here at the top and at the bottom. Okay. Then I found the easiest way to do this next step is to bend these 2 flaps, just the outer flaps, back, because you need the mark right here, and you're going to line this up at 3.5 inches and put a mark here and a mark here. So now I've got a mark here, 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 and here, right? Okay, so now our next scoring is not going to use these marks. We'll use those in a minute. So we're going to score from this score line diagonally to this score line. So the first score line on each side diagonally. And this is why it's easier to use the trimmer to line it up, because you can line up that score line and that score line with this cutting well, and it's just much easier to see. Okay, score number 1. Now we're going to do the opposite one. So we're going to line up this score line at the end here with this score line at the end. So you're not going corner to corner, you're going end score line to end score line. Okay. So let's fold those. So if you noticed when I folded and burnished these straight score lines, I folded and burnished them both ways. And that's because we want this to lay really nicely when we start folding it in on itself. So now I'm going to, this is the top of my card, I'm going to fold backwards. Like that. Top of the card, mount and fold. Same thing with the other one, mount and fold. And now you have the 4 score lines plus 1 big X. Now we're going to use those marks we just made and we're going to make a diamond. So we're going to score from this middle mark here to this middle mark here. And I found that if you get it close, then you can line it up in the track of your trimmer. Know where you don't want to score on this end flap, so know where your score blade is going to stop and start. And there's one. And we're going to go from this one to this one now. Now center to center again. And see how I'm getting it close? And let me zoom that in. So I'm getting this one close and this one close. And then I'm looking through this channel right here to line it up because I can see my mark there and I can see my mark there. So that's how I'm doing it. Okay, and then the last one, get it close. It wasn't that close there, but close enough, because now I can see all my marks. And so how do I know where to stop? What I'm doing is I'm looking at where that mark is. It's over here somewhere between, well, about 3 and 5/8. So when I take my scoring blade up there, I'm only going to go up to 3 and 5/8. And that changes every time you move your paper, so you got to look and see. So now we've got our diamond. Let's fold those. Make sure you don't fold this end piece. And you notice I'm not using my bone folder on these diagonal folds yet. I'm just trying to get them situated. Now, oops, let's zoom back out so we can see again. Now I'm going to take, and if you notice, if you scored correctly, all of these X's will go right over your vertical lines. Okay? They should all meet right there. You see that? See how it all meets right there in the middle? Okay, the last step to finish up making your card base, you're going to cut from this mark to this mark. Okay, so line it up at the 3.5 inch mark here, and you're going to use your cutting blade, and you're going to cut actually from 1 3/4 to 8 3/4. So you look on your ruler. This ruler here I put on extra. I took a piece of my grid sheet and cut this piece off and glued it on the top here so I could see it on this side, because this side is really hard for me to see. So 1 3/4. I'm lined up at 3.5 down to 8 3/4. Okay, and that was a cut. And that's the only cut on all this. Okay, so now the first time you're going to put these together, you're going to have to kind of coax them together. And then now that it's together, now you're gonna give it a good zhuzh, and that's an official Terry's Craft Room term. All my ladies in my card clubs are like, give it a good zhuzh. So, just so it lays nicely. And now when you take it apart and put it together, it'll go together in the right way. So that's the basic card base. Then it's just a matter of decorating. So to make this card, let me get everything a little bit straightened out. To make this card, we have a couple pieces of Very Vanilla, and these go on the back here. Okay. I've got a couple pieces of Early Espresso and some DSP. This DSP happens to be retired. Use whatever DSP is in your stash or that you'd like to use. I have another square of the card base to go in the center here. I have 2 more pieces of Early Espresso and 2 more pieces of DSP to layer there. A piece of DSP to layer on this piece here, and a piece of Very Vanilla to stamp to make my flower. Okay, so let's set that up here. We're going to set this aside for now, and we're going to work on making the decorations. I'm going to fast forward this because I'm going to layer these up and put them on, and you all know how to do that. So. Okay, so let's talk about decorating it. So we need a scrap piece of paper, Cajun Craze, and I'm going to take the Celebrating You stamp from the Coneflower Celebrations. And what I did, since I want to use this curved label punch, I mounted it in a curve, even though it's a straight stamp. And then I set it here like this to make sure, and eyeball it to make sure it's at the right curve for that punch. Okay, and then we'll stamp that and punch it out. Okay, we have that. Now we need to punch out a background. So we're just gonna mount that. Right there. We'll set that aside. Now for our sunflower. So I'm using the Sunflower Embossing Folder, which is an online only embossing folder. And you can see it's got some really pretty flowers in it. So what I'm doing is I'm lining up this piece of paper I'm lining it up so I get a whole sunflower, and then I'm going to go and emboss it. And here's our embossed, and we're actually going to use the debossed side, or the squished in side, okay, not the popped up side. So we're going to use the debossed side, and get a piece of scrap paper here. And I forgot to get out my daubers, so let me get my daubers out. So debossed side, we're going to start with crushed curry. And I'm going to start coloring. Now always, when you're using a sponge dauber, you always start off your page so you don't get that splotch of color. Okay, so there's step one for coloring our sunflower. Step two is Cajun craze. And we're just going to color right in here next to the center of the flower. And you want to make sure you don't have just a straight line here. You want to kind of fan it out a little bit. So there's step two. Step three is Old Olive. And we're going to just color the leaves, which on this one I lined it up so there aren't a whole lot of leaves. Okay, so most of my leaves on this flower are in the corners. Now step four is going to be early espresso. And we're going to color the center of the flower. Okay, and you could leave it right there just like that if you wanted to. Okay, but I think step five really makes it pop, and you're going to take your pad, okay, and go ink to paper. So you're just going to gently wipe it over your paper. And see how that makes that pop out? Oh, that's just gorgeous. Just gorgeous. Now the last step on this, and I just felt it needed something, a little something more, is you're going to take your Cajun craze and you're going to flick the edges. And if you want more color in different places, you can add it now. You can still add more color if you want more yellow in your petals or whatever. Okay, I think I like that. So that's how easy it is to color this sunflower for the center of this card. Okay, so let's layer this onto our other piece here. And then we're going to put this, so when you put this in your embossing folder, you need to just remember that this is going to be on your card at a diamond shape, not as a square. So I had a couple more here. Here's a couple more, just like this one. Okay, and then here's one. It's actually done on crushed curry paper, and it uses this flower here, the sideways flower. And so if I were to put this on, I would put it this way on my card. So, and you can also do the embossed side and color the embossed side. So those are some different things that you can do. Now, to put this on, the easiest way I've found is to flatten your card out, put a little bit of glue on the top and the bottom, and then just lay it on there. And then we'll put some dimensionals on this. Everything except the edge. Now, when you get a dimensional sheet like this, and you've used all the center pieces, you can still use these pieces here. Just cut them with a pair of scissors. And the last thing we need is bling, and I'm using this adhesive backed swirl dots. They are retired, but like I said, I'm a huge advocate of using what's in your stash. And let's put that there. And there you have it. Your Celebrating You double diamond pop-up card. And once again, I got the idea of this from Sam Colcott, I believe that's her name, from Mixed Up Crafters, and I just changed the dimensions so it would fit in a 5x7 envelope. Hope you enjoyed today's project. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and a like. I hope to be making more videos soon. Visit terryscraftroom.com to get all the measurements and score lines and everything that you might need. And we'll see you soon. Have a wonderful day. Bye now.